Welcome back to the county seat. It's time for our discussion. We're bringing you that discussion today on the road. We are in Vernal, Utah at the Uintah County Courthouse for our discussion because we wanted to get a little bit closer to the situation. Joining us for the conversation are two landowners and people who've been very intimately involved in this entire process of trying to solve the river problems. We have Sean Massey, who's a landowner along the river and has some ideas on how to fix the problem. And we have Brent Sheffer, who's his neighbor, I suppose, just outside of Jensen, who's been 4 generations on the river. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us. I might add, Brent, you have actually worked for the Fish Recovery Program, so you have a little bit closer knowledge of how the fish behave on the river.
Yes.
Thank you for joining us. I'm going to start the conversation by just throwing out the question. Is this working? Is what Fish and Wildlife and BOR doing every year working?
In my opinion, it's putting a strain on a lot of things like the fish and our soils and other things. I don't think personally it's really.
And from my end, I really can't answer that because I don't have the experience to know if their program is working.
They are talking about the success of the razorback suckerfish. They're talking about the pike. And the numbers that we can get from the federal government as far as the program goes and any kind of data they have, I was surprised at how few of the fish actually are in the numbers of the recovery for the millions of gallons of water they're dumping over the spillway and putting into the system. It's almost like it counts in hundreds. I saw one report where they said we had an increase of hundreds of fish, not thousands or tens of thousands or millions. So it seems like the recovery is happening at a huge cost.
I totally believe what you're saying is true. My wife and I went to a meeting and they gave these statistics, and based off of their results, we did not see where it was a success in their program and in the number of desired fish coming back.
If you're trying to bring back and have a native species population overtake a non-native in a natural way and make it sustainable in the river, and all you're doing is taking all the species and creating a larval pool for them to grow up in, and you have 10 times as many non-natives, aren't you creating 10 times as many non-natives as you're raising them? That seems to me that's what would be happening.
When they raise the river so high that the water comes over the banks and all of these fish come in, and then they have no way to get back to the river. So in a lot of these oxbows, which is a pool of water, a lot of these non-natives are, I think, and what I'm hearing, are taking over the natives in these programs that they're using.
Because they're more aggressive and
correct.
And they eat fish, and some of the natives don't eat fish.
Their numbers are exploding under the program that they're using, is what I'm hearing.
Well, what I'd like to see is some data on what kind of numbers of non-natives they are actually taking out.
What are the damages that are happening? That's what I want to know, is what's happening to your land?
So I'm having issues with the salts coming to the surface. I'm having issue with the invasion of non-native vegetation. My cottonwoods are basically just rotting from the inside out. I've got 300-year-old trees. I had 300-year-old trees that are just tipping over.
So I want to talk about the salt situation, because this is something a lot of people aren't thinking about. What do you do if you get, how do you fix salt coming up to the surface of your soil? I've seen it before, but I don't know how you treat it.
The only way you can treat it is to push it back down with water. So the water has pushed it to the surface, so you just have to drop that water level to where you can push it back down.
And how do you push it down? You don't go out with a shovel and go like this or anything.
No.
The NRCS has come up with a program with the sprinkling system. Mm-hmm. They have helped a lot of farmers out by getting sprinklers. And sprinklers basically are like rain. and they drop down in, and it pushes it back into the ground.
So there would be critics of this saying we're trying to duplicate the natural flow, and all that they're doing by bringing that dam up to 6,000 feet, and on those couple of weeks, just letting water flow like crazy, they say, well, that's just duplicating the natural course of the river, and you know, you'll have that every 100 years. How do you counter that?
You're right. Yeah, we could have it every 100 years, but not every year, because they can hold enough water in the Flaming Gorge Dam to where when the Yampa out of Colorado peaks on runoff in the springtime, they can release water out of the Flaming Gorge Dam to create these 100-year floods every year, is what we're up against.
So, and when I go back and I look at the old literature from the Bureau of Reclamation, and when they were putting these mega dams along the river, the idea, one of the 4 stated missions of the river was flood control. And so isn't this fish program going contrary to one of the purposes of putting the dams in the river in the first place? I don't know, neither one of you want to answer that. It's a politically charged question.
Yeah,
but
right.
it's a question that people at home are going, well, if that was the purpose, why are they doing this?
I can't answer that.
Well, you know, you need to ask them.
I think we've demonstrated the problem and the fact that there just doesn't seem to be a good solution. I do want to turn to solutions.
Okay, what I'm proposing is we have some canals down on our farm on the Green River below Jensen, and we have to get water from the Green River over to our pumps so we can pump the water into our pivots, into our irrigation systems for raising crops. So I'm proposing that we bring water into these canals and raise fish in these canals as we're using the water that we're pumping out onto the farm ground.
You don't have to bring the 100-year flood on to get that water into those canals.
Correct.
Is there enough capacity in your canals currently that you could make a significant impact, or would you have to increase the system?
I believe that we could make a huge difference the way we're just about set up right now.
What Sean is proposing here, it's something we could look at. Mm-hmm. It could work. Every situation up on the river is going to be a little different because of the lay of the land, the lay of the river, but I think that things like this could be looked at and could help out, really.
Could you actually go to some of the other farmers or the ranchers along there and just actually build outright hatcheries along the river that would release right to the river? I know that they have a hatchery below Hoover Dam that raises fish and dumps them right into the Colorado River at that point. And it seems to me that would be a workable program, wouldn't it?
You'd have to isolate it from the river to make sure that you didn't get the non-natives coming into it.
Right, and that's how this system works. It's down there, like I say, it's just at the bottom of Black Canyon, and they have a fish hatchery built right there, and they raise the fish, and their output actually outputs right into the river. So they're pulling river water off, so it wouldn't be that much different than your system.
Right.
And then they directly release into the river, and then they work their way on down to through the rest of Black Canyon to Lake Mojave.
With your question, would there be other landowners willing to do it? And I have talked to some, and sure, yes, there would, and with the feedback that they've already given me.
Do you think you'd have to do it forever?
The river has a mind of its own. It does what it does. Mm-hmm. I think eventually we might be able to make it to where it would, but you'd still have competition somewhere. It'd take a long time. It would take a long time.
So everybody that I talk to that's kind of environmentally inclined, they blame this problem with the fish on the fact that in the 50s and 60s we put dams in the river system, and that this whole upper Colorado river system got put in with the dams. And they say the dams are what caused this problem with the native species. Do you agree with that assessment?
I think that if you're looking at, did it change the chemistry of the river? I believe it did. But did it cause the problem? I don't believe that.
From what I'm hearing, as far as the program that they have been working on, I think it has more to do with their program than it has to do with the dam.
So do you think we can actually solve the problem if the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service will change their thinking, or the Endangered Species Act will be modified to say that you don't have to bring those populations back via a natural method on some of these major rivers where we've taken this commitment to control water? Because the costs seem huge. I mean, everybody wants to take the dams out, but then what happens to the water users, the electricity, all these other things that they built them for?
You mentioned through their natural method. We've moved out of a natural method because of the way that they hold the water back and then flood. So that is not natural, because they've created this through holding back water with the dam. So because of that system alone, I think we can move to this other system because we're not working under a natural system.
It's not going to be natural from this point forward anyway.
Well, and it hasn't been.
Right.
Because of the dam and the way they've been holding the water back. So because of what we're proposing, I think we can make a difference.
Excellent. I pray that we can find a solution that protects our vital interests of being able to raise food, protect the historic value of the river, and provide electricity and water and all the benefits that come from it. And we thank you for watching. We'll be right back. We're going to take a personal look, take you on the ground so that you can see exactly what is happening out there on the river firsthand. We'll be back with the County Seat in just a minute.